This is a historic day, not just for the WNBA and the players, but also a historic day for women in sport. Both the union and the league have agreed to terms that they feel good about.
Your sister's leadership during this time is going to be something that's going to go down in annals. She has set a standard. She deserves to be applauded for it. And the deal that the WNBA players got is a damn good deal.
At 2:20 a.m., inside a hotel lobby in Midtown Manhattan, the longest and most intense labor dispute in WNBA history finally reached its end, with a champagne celebration. After 17 months of negotiations, missed deadlines, and a 98% strike authorization vote from players who had been warned to prepare financially for a prolonged battle.
Well, for the past, I would say, year and a half, the executive committee has been urging everyone to save their money because we knew the negotiations were coming up. We never know what's going to happen.
The WNBA now has a new agreement. And for the first time in the league's 30-year existence, players are set to earn million-dollar salaries. The Supermax salary is increasing from $249,000 to $1.4 million. The average salary is rising from $120,000 to approximately $600,000. Even the minimum salary jumps from $66,000 to over $300,000. These aren't just small raises. This is a complete transformation of what it means to be a professional women's basketball player. But here's the question most people aren't asking yet. Who really won this battle? In the previous video, Nafisa Collier mentioned that eventually one side would have to give in. And in reality, both sides made compromises. Later in this breakdown, there's one specific clause hidden within the agreement that appears designed with Caitlin Clark in mind. And it may be the smartest move both sides agreed on. There's also a reason this deal isn't fully finalized yet, and how it could still unravel, so keep watching. Let me explain how everything unfolded, because the story is genuinely interesting. About a week before the agreement was finalized, Caitlin Clark made a comment that turned out to be completely accurate. She said she didn't understand why both sides couldn't simply sit down, work things out, and come to an agreement. And that's exactly what happened. Beginning on Tuesday, March 10th, league officials and the players' union locked themselves inside the Langham Hotel in Midtown Manhattan and stayed there until a deal was reached. They spent 8 consecutive days in face-to-face discussions, totaling more than 100 hours at the negotiating table. Over the weekend, they shifted meetings to WNBA headquarters, then returned to the hotel by Tuesday. On the final day alone, talks lasted over 10 continuous hours. Nneka Ogwumike, Breanna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Alicia Clark, and Brianna Turner represented the union in person, while Kelsey Plum and Elizabeth Williams joined via video calls at different times. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was present for the league. Most notably, during that final week, nothing leaked to the public. This was a major contrast to earlier sessions, where private discussions were exposed within 48 hours, damaging trust between both parties. This time, both sides understood the stakes and kept everything confidential. At 2:20 a.m. on Wednesday, they finally shook hands and celebrated. By 3 a.m., Engelbert and Ogwumike stood side by side in the hotel lobby speaking to reporters after 17 months of very public tension. Engelbert described it as a fair outcome for everyone. Ogwumike summed it up perfectly, saying they were grateful to reach an agreement, proud of their efforts, and that they had promised to handle business. And this was exactly that. Now let's look at the numbers because they're remarkable. The salary cap is jumping from $1.5 million to $7 million. That's not just an increase, it's nearly 5 times higher. Every team now has significantly more money to invest in players. The Supermax salary rises from $249,000 to $1.4 million, meaning stars like Aya Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Nafisa Collier are about to become the first million-dollar players in league history. Just think about that. For 30 years, no player in this league has ever earned $1 million salary, and that changes now. The average salary increases from $120,000 to around $600,000, which is 5 times higher than before. Even the minimum salary rises from $66,000 to more than $300,000. In simple terms, the lowest contract next season will be better than the highest contract from the previous one. Take a moment to process that. Now let's discuss revenue sharing, which was the main point of contention for 17 months. Players will now receive nearly 20% of total revenue over the course of the agreement. They initially demanded 40%, later reduced it to 31%, then 27.5%, and finally settled at 20%. While that's a significant drop from their original demand, the league was offering only around 13% to 14.5%, meaning both sides had to compromise. Ultimately, they met closer to the middle than most expected. Beyond salaries, the agreement also includes improved housing support, retirement benefits, family planning assistance, better parental leave policies, upgraded facilities, enhanced medical and training staff requirements, and increased overall resources. Agumike made it clear. This deal reshapes what it means to be a professional player in this league. Now here's the part that hasn't received much attention yet, and it's arguably the most interesting detail. Hidden within the agreement is a clause that seems tailored specifically for rising stars like Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers. It allows players on rookie contracts who earn first or second team All-WNBA honors to qualify for a max contract in their fourth year, without being restricted by a franchise tag afterward. In simple terms, Caitlin Clark could sign a max deal as early as 2027, Paige Bueckers would qualify in 2028, and Aaliyah Boston would already meet the criteria this year. The league clearly recognized that its biggest stars, those driving viewership, ticket sales, and expansion value, should be compensated at their true market value as quickly as possible. The numbers are staggering. Clark earned $78,000 in her rookie season. Under this new agreement, she could make $1.4 million within a few years. That's an 18-fold increase. From struggling to cover basic expenses in Indianapolis to potentially becoming the highest-paid player in league history. As Mark Cuban pointed out, top college players are already making between $500,000 and $1.2 million through nil deals. This new agreement finally bridges that gap. For the first time, going professional in women's basketball doesn't mean taking a financial step backward. Clark herself addressed the deal afterward, saying it would change the lives of many players, especially younger ones like her, and that everyone involved should feel proud. Notice she specifically mentioned players like herself, not veterans who have already spent years in the league. She was referring to younger players generating millions in revenue while earning minimal salaries. That's who this deal is really designed for. So after 17 months of negotiations, strike threats, declining ratings in competing leagues, Adam Silver's involvement, leaked meetings, and late-night statements, who actually came out ahead? Here's the honest answer. Players initially asked for 40% of revenue and received 20%. They requested a $10.5 million salary cap and ended up with $7 million. On paper, the league held firm. But just a month before the agreement, the league was offering only 13% to 14.5% revenue share and a $5.65 million cap. In the end, the agreement settled at 20% revenue share and a $7 million salary cap, both clearly higher than what the league originally aimed for. More importantly, the players secured what they truly wanted: a system where salaries are connected to real revenue and increase as the league continues to grow. That structural change was Nneka Agumike's priority from the very start. She wasn't just chasing bigger numbers. She was focused on building a stronger, more sustainable system. And when you look at the results, it's hard to ignore what the players achieved. The maximum salary jumped from $249,000 to $1.4 million, a 462% increase. The minimum rose from $66,000 to over $300,000, marking a 354% jump. The average salary climbed from $120,000 to $600,000, a 400% increase. No labor agreement in American professional sports history has ever delivered raises at this level. Not in the NBA, NFL, or MLB. No league has multiplied player salaries fivefold in a single CBA cycle. Until now, WNBA players just made history. Kelsey Plum summed up the mindset perfectly during negotiations, saying she's always focused on the game itself, not the financial gap. And that perspective says a lot. Did players get the 40% they initially wanted? No. Did they reach 30%? Still no. But did they move from $66,000 minimum salaries to $300,000? Yes. Did they secure million-dollar contracts for the first time ever? Absolutely. Did they establish revenue sharing that increases alongside league growth? Yes. So who actually won? The honest answer is both sides. The league maintained a percentage that keeps the business stable, especially with expansion teams arriving and a new $2.2 billion media deal beginning this year. Meanwhile, players gained life-changing financial improvements with a structure that protects their future. When Commissioner Kathy Engelbert called it a fair result for everyone, this time it truly fits. However, before celebrating too much, there's an important detail. This deal isn't officially finalized yet. What happened at 2:20 a.m. was a verbal agreement. A handshake and champagne, but not a signed contract. Legal teams still need to convert that agreement into a formal written document, which could take a couple of days. After that, players must vote to approve it, followed by final approval from the WNBA's Board of Governors. That entire process could take several weeks. Until everything is completed, there's technically still a small chance something could go wrong. It's unlikely, because no one celebrates at 3 a.m. expecting things to collapse, but it's still worth noting that the process isn't fully complete. The next major challenge is timing. The season is set to begin on May 8th, and an entire off-season schedule now has to fit into just 6 weeks. The expansion draft for the Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo is tentatively planned between April 1st and 6th. Free agency qualifying offers go out on April 7th and 8th. Negotiations run from April 9th through 11th, with official signings between April 12th and 18th. The college draft takes place on April 13th. Training camp begins April 19th, and preseason games start April 25th. That's an entire offseason compressed into a tight 6-week window. It will be hectic, but also incredibly exciting. If you step back and look at the bigger picture, this entire situation stands out as one of the most dramatic labor battles in sports history. From beginning to end, it had all the elements of a major crisis. Early on, comparisons to the 1994 MLB strike felt realistic. That strike led to a canceled World Series and caused baseball to lose its position as America's top sport, with long-term damage that never fully recovered. There was real concern that the WNBA might repeat that mistake, risking everything just as the league was finally gaining momentum. Then things began to shift. When Unrivaled's ratings dropped significantly in its second year, the players lost a key piece of leverage. The league responded firmly, and suddenly the balance of power changed. There were serious doubts about whether a full season would even happen, especially after tensions involving Adam Silver and Nneka Ogwumike became public, along with leaked meeting details and Nafisa Collier's warning that eventually one side would have to give in. But now here we are. Agreement reached. No strike, no lockout, no lost season. The WNBA avoided the path that baseball once took. Instead, both sides managed something far more difficult. They fought hard, stood firm in public, and still found a middle ground before it was too late. Credit belongs to everyone involved. The players applied real pressure, and the threat of a strike proved meaningful even without an actual walkout. That 98% authorization vote, the message encouraging players to save money, and the willingness to let deadlines pass all helped push the league from around 13% to 20% revenue sharing. That 7-point increase represents hundreds of millions of dollars over time. At the same time, the league deserves recognition for holding its position on key financial structures long enough to protect its business model, then agreeing to a number that works for both sides. Players now benefit from revenue sharing that grows alongside the league, while the league remains financially strong enough to continue expanding. That balance is what a successful agreement looks like.